What's going on, guys? My name is LowFyye, and today I'm going to talk about how to improve in PvP-based games. Specifically, I'm going to talk about how to practice in Destiny 2. Before I get into it, there are a few things I just want to get out of the way. First, I do not think I'm the best player in the game or the guy with all the answers. And when it comes to first-person shooters and practicing, there really is just no one right way to do it. This is a method that I use and have found works for me. Secondly, this video is focused on a practice method to help you apply and improve your skills, not as much what those good habits and individual skills are or look like, as that is a whole other topic and this video is simply not long enough for both. If you want to get a little bit more background on this sort of thing, I highly recommend checking out some of Cool Guy's videos, which I will link in the description. He does a great job diving into the technical side of Crucible and PvP as a whole. With that said, if you'd like me to do my own video or videos on this topic, just let me know in the comments and I would be happy to see what I can do. My goal for this video is to help you improve your individual skills so that you might be able to go after those higher tier weapons in the game, like Luna's Howl, Not Forgotten, Recluse, that are all locked behind the competitive playlist. Though this video is going to focus on Destiny, I want to be clear that the principles it is based on can be applied to other first-person shooters as well. Ultimately, I hope that regardless of what game you play, this video might be useful for improving the way that you practice. This way you will see more progression in your skill level that reflects the time spent trying to improve. With all that said, let's get right into it. First, I want to break down a practice session into 3 sections: research, self-coaching, and review. Practice starts before any in-game activity. This is research. Study what your favorite pro gamers do well, or watch a tip video, whatever works for you. There are so many sources available to us that outline the behaviors, habits, and tactics that we need to build on in order to improve game sense and overall skill. This is not meant to be a simple passive activity. Engage in what you're doing. Pause the video when you hear something that clicks with you. Stop to think about what was said, and write notes. At this point, let's say you've done research for 30 minutes and feel like you found some things that maybe you need to work on or just forgot about. From here, the goal is to actually start improving those things in-game. For Destiny, there are 2 things that I do which will not necessarily apply across the board. First is to choose your weapons and armor. Don't use your Bygones with 8,000 Crucible kills on it that feels like an extension of your body. Choose something that is viable, but you may not be as comfortable using. For me, this might look like a Duke MK44 hand cannon with a sniper. Apply the same idea to what armor you use. I'm not saying handicap yourself. You can still use exotics, but stay away from the loadout that could get you out of normally unwinnable engagements. The next thing to do is to hop into a rumble match, and if you're not playing Destiny, look for any type of free-for-all game mode. This is where the active practice through self-coaching takes place. I advise rumble because you're on your own. How well you do is completely based on your own performance, and you will not succeed because of a good team. You can still match against players of a higher or lower tier than you, but at that point, how well you do is still based on your own individual skill and performance. This is a less forgiving environment, but in order to improve, you need to challenge yourself. Once you start up a game of Rumble, do not look at it as a normal match. Ignore who's winning and your own score. Instead, focus on constantly reminding yourself of the research that you did earlier. What clicked with you, and what did you determine you needed to improve? Let's say you have a tendency to chase kills. As you're playing, make an effort to remind yourself not to do this. I have found that vocalizing what you're thinking is extremely effective. From the second the game starts, you are coaching yourself on what you should be doing. You don't need to talk out loud if this is something you're uncomfortable with. Just make sure to keep an inner monologue going of what you're doing. When you make a mistake or die, pause for a second. Don't just run straight into the next gunfight. Think about what you did wrong and how you could have prevented the death. Ultimately, you're working to reinforce and create good habits while drawing attention to what your bad habits are. By doing this, you will begin to see and feel when you are successful. You tell yourself the correct move and execute it. Then experience the positive results of ignoring the urge to follow an old habit. This builds new connections in your mind between certain behaviors and positive outcomes. This is a method of practice that leads to a cycle. With each game you play, you are continuing to learn about yourself, what your playstyle is, what common mistakes you make, and what your strengths are. This self-analysis builds upon itself, with each game giving you something new to study in the next. In this way, you can continue to learn and progress. The last section of practice I want to address is review. Not everyone records their gameplay, but I highly recommend you start if you aren't already. This doesn't have to be 3 hours straight of footage. Maybe record one of your practice games or even just a couple minutes. Go back once you're done with your matches and watch yourself. Don't just record the highlights or fast forward when you make mistakes. The goal of watching your gameplay is to see what you're doing from an objective vantage point. Have your notes with you from your research and see what mistakes you make. Maybe even write them down so you can focus on them in another practice session. This allows you to continue the process of learning and know in what ways you can focus on improving yourself the next time you practice. You may have noticed a few common themes throughout the sections of practice I addressed. Slowing things down or pausing and self-analysis are the 2 principles that this method is based off of. When we slow down what we're doing by taking notes, stopping to think after a death, or reviewing our gameplay, it allows for your mind to better retain the information you're trying to learn. Analyzing ourselves works in hand with this to identify the weaknesses we have and continue to find areas that we need to improve on and reinforce. By combining these 2 principles, we are increasing the effectiveness of practice through maximizing our ability to retain information. Practice is a general term and can look very different from person to person. This is simply a way to practice that I've found clicks with me. You may have your own way of doing things, and that is completely fine. Do what works best for you. There is a lot to be said on this topic, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. What are different ways you like to practice? Is there anything you think I missed or you'd like to see me talk about in the future? Let me know in the comments below. If you found any of the information in this video to be useful, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. All the support is much appreciated. To wrap this all up, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching.